Hello, beautiful human beings, and welcome to the Ryan Magic Show. Today we have a very special guest, a great friend of mine, kind of my spiritual mama in the world over in LA, Dr. Erin Haskell. And I'm actually going to read your bio, Erin, because it's pretty impressive. I usually don't read people's bios, but I'm going to just read it so you can just take in what an inspiring woman you are. Dr. Erin is a world-renowned Doctor of Divinity, manifesting and universal law expert, founder of the Spiritual Psychology School, TV show host of Good Morning La Land, creator of the E4 Trauma Method, international best-selling author, Walden Wisdom Award Next to Oprah, Global Peace Award, self-made millionaire, top 1% spirituality podcast, and mother, which that last thing is, being a mother is definitely one of the most impressive among that list. But you're an incredible woman.
I think there's no accident that you said which right after, which probably should go on my bio as well.
There you go.
You said which is impressive. Yeah, I got to add some witchery in that bio. Yes, for sure. We needed more magic and witchery in this world for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're definitely a light witch, a white witch.
Yes,
white witch.
Yes, definitely. Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. Thanks for coming on, Erin. So nice to see you.
So good. It's like family, I feel like there's some souls that just are kind of on the journey together. And even though we've been in opposite sides of the world and touched in our physicality as not as anything like that, but as a community, as people on the path of seeking, it just feels like we're on this path together at some level,
Yeah. Well, every time I'm close to you, we end up really close. Like when I was in LA.
You're a great, you're a great conversationist, conscious conversationist for sure. One of the best.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. Definitely curious. And last time I was in LA, I was like going through some hardcore trauma bond connection where I'd escaped COVID. I've never been so like anxious and overwhelmed in my life. And then like I magnetically just was living with you. So
it was an intense time. I was so proud of you for getting out of there. That was a really intense decision probably for you. A hard one for sure.
To get out of Australia?
Yeah, to make that journey and go into the unknown and leave everything you've known and really commit to, finding conscious community. And I watched your journey the entire time and it was really beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you for the love and support on that path. So you've been practicing in this space for a long time. You stepped in 18, 20 years ago, deep into the spiritual work. And I didn't know this about your story, but I was reading the material that you sent through about when you gave birth and we're just looking at this like body and feeling the spirit being separate from the body. I didn't know that about you. That's super unique. Can you tell me a little bit about that experience, like the feeling of it and the significance of that experience?
Yeah. So as I'm sure if anyone's listening and they know my story, my real big awakening was when I had a full-term stillborn at the age of 22. And I came into this, just a backstory a little bit. I came to this lifetime really a seeker, came from a quite dysfunctional family, if you'd say, so much of a pseudo hippie commune, and just didn't have any structure growing up. And I just remember asking my mom, like, what's the meaning of life? And like, why are we here? And it was always kind of this like discontent feeling in me. Like I knew there was something more. My mom would say that I would talk to people on the other side as a little girl. She thought it was crazy because I literally would like, there's people talking to me. There's people in this room right now. Like, and I think that as I was growing up, all my natural abilities, spiritual abilities began to diminish. And there was this kind of veil that came over my consciousness. And I began to get sadder and sadder as I grew up. I was date raped in high school and had bulimia from 17, 20. And I thought, well, if I just get married, because that's what I'd seen in all the movies. And so I got married to someone that I really didn't even know and got pregnant right away. And then I found out that my baby had died inside of me at full term. And so I went to the hospital. You have to, give birth to the body, and you go through full labor, and they have you bathe your dead baby, take pictures with your dead baby, and go home without your dead baby. And so the next day, when I went to the mortician's house alone, I was down this cold, dark room, and the mortician was like, take as much time as you want. And it was, Ryan, it was like a scene out of the movie. And it was literally like a room with like red drapes. It was, it was literally a scene out of the movie. And I remember I had this bag of clothes because I thought, oh, I'll be able to take the right pictures with the right clothes, thinking, but he was in formaldehyde for like 24 hours after, the day after giving birth to him. And I literally remember sitting there, like, you get that lump in your throat.
Yeah.
And you're just like, you feel as alone as possible, like so alone, and thinking, how could life be so cruel if there's a God, which I didn't believe in a God. And I just remember like feeling so alone and feeling so lost, because here this body was, and my baby was gone, but this body was here. And it was not just even a body, like a body that was completely, like decrepitating, I guess you could say, from the formaldehyde. And it was just one of those moments like, whoa, like this is dark. And the reality of life like slapped me in the face. Like, you are not this body. This is like something, like I was like, I have to figure this out. And in that moment, like literally it was like a spark, but it was really like a power decision. We talk about quantum manifesting, how we manifest from the power of decision of really invoking universal law and setting the polarity of emotion of the future into place. But the thing I committed at such a profound level that I was going to figure it out in this lifetime. I didn't know how. I didn't have any money. I didn't have any mentors. I barely had even parents' guidance. But I decided, like, there has to be so much more. And then I began to have the unveiling and unraveling of all that veil unconsciousness, which took me a long time, because it wasn't like today where spirituality is everywhere you go. This was 28 years ago. Okay. So I literally began to peel back the layers of the onion, as they say, and began to unravel all of life. And this became the most amazing, magical, and mystical and miraculous story of manifesting. But also, as you probably know, was a paradox and became a real hard journey of letting go of all the programming that the world had told me, and letting go of all the things that we thought we valued in this life. And so it's been this beautiful, epic, incredible journey of coming home, and then also having responsibility to know that we're one with everything, and that it matters for us to bring the truth out to the world. We're not just trying to be egoic spiritual leaders. Like, it's our obligation. There's no way we can keep these truths unless we really live them and teach them and preach them,
Thanks for sharing that. I just want to clear something up. I completely misinterpreted the story from reading it. I thought you were talking about you saw the spirit of Coburn.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't realize it was a stillbirth, so I misread that. So the way that I was asking the question was with all this love and enthusiasm, like you were there with this like beautiful birth body. So apologies for that.
That's so awesome. No, I really believe that Coburn, who's my son that's 28, I believe he's the same spirit, and I'm clear he is, because there's only one spirit. But I actually got pregnant a month to the day later after having a full-term stillborn with Coburn, who's 28 now, which is so insane, like that the body could even do that. I was like, he wanted to come through, he was like, no, I really didn't die. I'm right here. It was so awesome.
That's beautiful. But what a courageous and like a divine intervention to have something happen so shocking, that like literally shocking. And then to find, because I can just imagine based on what you're exposed to in your environment at that stage of your life, the way that life sculpted what you valued, to then just make a decision you're going to figure out God and spirituality.
I was in college, and I went back to school the next day after having my stillborn.
Wow.
I decided I was going to just prevail. I didn't know how. I was so sad inside, but I just knew I had to do whatever it took. And I couldn't, it was like getting back on the horse. I was like, if I don't get back on the horse, I'm going to die. So I had to just keep going. And it was like as if, I had a blink in, the whole thing. I just went straight back into life, like as if nothing had ever happened.
So wild.
Mm-hmm.
So when we were
Mm-hmm.
talking a moment ago, you touched on the difference between what society tells us to value and how you had to unravel that, and it took a while, versus what you perceive to be really valuable now with more awareness.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I perceive that the universe will play with our attachments. I really see that if when we're on the spiritual path, the universe will conspire to teach us what's really important by kind of withholding our attachments,
Mm-hmm.
things that we really want, we desperately need, to teach us to love beyond that. What's your kind of perspective on
Yeah.
the way that attachment impacts
Sure.
manifestation?
So let's talk about this because most people are listening because they love the conscious conversation, but let's reality. They have either some massive problems in their life, they're suffering greatly in their relationships or in just their own, relationship to their emotions, or two, trying to figure out their purpose in life or their career or their health. They're struggling with something massive, probably, because all of us do, right? And they're trying to manifest their life. They're trying to create their dreams into reality. But at the same time, there's something, and everyone knows that they want a little something deeper, like their soul's purpose versus just like, making money or whatever. So this conversation that I want to dive into right now is stories about what I've gone through, what my clients have gone through, but really it's for the intention of having people understand how to, what I would call, quantum manifest. And it's super cool because we're living in the most, I think, the most epic time, because even, in 2022, the Nobel Prize for physics was in quantum entanglement. And this is like a landmark time for us as spiritualists, because quantum entanglement says that two particles that have, touched will always automatically affect one another. So one particle over here will be spinning right way, and automatically the other one will be spinning the opposite way. This is the paradox of how the cause and effect and universal law works. So what does this mean exactly? This means that we all came out of one source, you could call it the Big Bang or whatever, but that we literally impact all of life. So what does this mean? This is great because this means that we can quantum manifest. We've been able to the entire time. So we get to really take a look at our lives and say, wow, I was able to profoundly create misery, suffering, division, scarcity, lack, fear. And the same exact source can equally create abundance, love, divinity, and all that. And so the conversation right now is, how do we actually create what we want to experience? And we have to first define, what is it that we actually want?
So in this conversation, I'm going to do my best to kind of get us to speak as straight and as if the audience are open and willing to listen to anything. AKA, we don't have to coax them or tell them what they want versus what they need. I just want to punch people in the throat with the information on this thing as much as possible. And so I saw on one of your posts recently that you mentioned, be careful what you wish for. Be careful what you wish for. You wish for love. The universe might give you a narcissist to teach you how to love yourself. Be careful what you wish for. If you want the money, the business is going to teach, might strip it away. So talk a little bit about talk a little bit about what how the universe supports us to learn through that contrast.
So I remember at the age of I was almost 16 years old. I decided I was going to get a car. I was determined that on my 16th birthday, I was going to get a car. And what happened is I waited tables, I saved enough money, and I got a crappy car, but a car. And with the car came more problems. I ended up, having a car payment and had to have gas, and the car would break down and So, and then I thought, well, if I just make more money, then I'll be able to get a better car and then I won't have those problems. So then I got a better job and got a better car. And then I had a new set of problems. Okay. So the universe, it's like a sick joke, right? It's like, it is in what we decide that we want. Okay. So say we want, I want to become a millionaire. I want to have a house and I want to, whatever, be an influencer, right? And automatically, by judging and putting a positive charge, if you will, on that outpicturing, It means
Fantasizing,
that we
right?
have, yeah, which means we've now assigned a negative, a resistance to the equal opposite of that. And physics will say whatever you create, there's an equal and opposite creation because it's in the polarization of universal law. So if I say I want to create being millionaire, which was another thing I wanted to create, and I became a millionaire, an equal and opposite is what's the opposite of I wanted to create being a millionaire? Maybe it was scarcity, being alone, all those things I would consider not what I perceived as a millionaire. Okay. So in that equally opposite, I actually magnified all the things that I actually was resisting, which was I felt more scarcity than ever as a millionaire, which is insane if you think about it, because it just magnified everything that was in my consciousness already. So no matter what we're creating in the polarization. So everything is a paradox. What's the blessing and what's the curse? They all come with both, because that's the entire, everything we create is a paradox, right? So the point is that when I began to go, oh, let's see, becoming a millionaire is not the answer. Embodying the consciousness of abundance is the answer, which means I have to let go of everything that I thought abundance looked like. And I have to go to what I call 0 point energy, into what we call the gap, or the witness, or that place of no attachment, zero identity, and into pure creation. From an authentic standpoint of no limited beliefs, no mental charge on the subconscious, purely creating from an authentic space of I'm creating abundance, not to have $1 million, but to give abundantly, serve abundantly, and receive abundantly in the flow and currency, right? So that's the difference. So for me, it's like manifesting without awakening is a trap, is what I say. It's like going in one of those mazes and you get to the end and you're like a dead end again. Oh, let's go over here, a dead end over here. Well, maybe if I just get the next relationship, oh, this is dead end. Maybe if I just move here versus there, nope, dead end again. It's like there's nowhere to go except within.
So you perceive that people would be, because I believe that we have desires, and then in my kind of map, or the way that I teach, is within that desire, let's say it's to be a successful entrepreneur, there are heads, what I call head attachments, which were birthed in fear, and there are heart desires, which were birthed in love. And so if we can create it through the lens of love, with the more pure and wholesome aspects of that desire, then we're going to be connected more to the love, like both sides of it, and less we're not going to.
So this is the litmus test, right? So if I go, oh, it's going to be all from love and it's going to be from authenticity, but when it doesn't show up as love, then am I upset and having failed expectations, right? So it's like there's a difference, in my opinion. Okay, so we teach, or I teach, how to quantum manifest has to be basically serving the only source, which is within. So if I have any attachment to the external world, that would be the source of my disempowerment. So put it this way, if I want to create from what you just said, an entrepreneur, an authentic, heartfelt entrepreneurship, and I really am there from the heart, but guess what? I'm not making very much money, and I'm now upset because it doesn't look like it is loving, because it's not, I'm not feeling loving because it didn't manifest in the way that I want it to manifest. Instead, it's like there's a faith of knowing no matter if my bank account is empty or whether I have millions coming in, I have to live in faith and not put my power outside of myself. This is what traditional religion would say sin. Sin is missing the mark and placing the power outside of thyself. And so it's a real dance, because we want to be in a heartfelt space and really like come from that place. But is it actually a heart? If it has to be from the heart, and sometimes life doesn't show up loving, do we then judge it because it's not loving? Because being loving all the time may not be realistic.
Well, is it our perception of loving? Because like if it doesn't show up in the way that we want or we think it should, we perceive it as non-loving. But it's all, in my opinion, it's always the universe gifting us the opportunity to experience that contrast, so we can find the love within it. Do you agree with that?
I mean, I'm going to be an extremist because I'm a bit of an extremist. Okay.
Yeah, bring it.
I feel like I feel like it's kind of like when you see a relationship therapist, okay? And kudos to all the relationship therapists because there's amazing therapists out there, okay? But most relationships, you'll see that in therapy, they will try and manage what's on top of the table. Well, if he just did this, or we communicated more, or we spent more time together on dates, or if we did whatever, and they keep trying to manage everything. But there's always problems. No matter what they do, there's always problems. And as we were just talking about, John DeMartini is really great at saying, expecting the unattainable or being in fantasy that you're not going to have arguments is a delusional place, right? So what is real? Is it real to say, I'm just going to accept, all of their flaws and just be okay with the upset? That's probably not realistic either. What is realistic from a divine perspective is that majority of human beings will never spend enough time in deep meditation and with beloved divine to not look to their partner or to the world as their source. It's almost impossible. It is impossible to not be upset when you're in relationship at some point in time. It's impossible to not have expectations. It's impossible to not judge. So for me as an extremist, I just kind of surrender and go, that out there ain't ever going to be where I'm fulfilled. The only true fulfillment I have is going and being with the beloved divine inside. And then serving out here and being in the presence out here, but never looking for anything out here.
So do you then believe that if you are connecting more often with the divine internally, that the external pursuits that you have are imbued with more divinity, and therefore there's less attachment, less judgment, less expectations placed on those things? So if you, for example, as Erin, Dr. Erin, are serving from the way that you feel that the divine is working through you, do you perceive that you're out of the human and the being, like the human is slightly less present, or are you just like, no matter what I do?
Yeah, as they say, it's I'm in this world, but not of this world kind of a thing, which might be like another spiritual bypass for some people, And so it's like, you can go up in the Himalayas and meditate for the rest of your life, or you can be down here in the concrete jungle and like deal with life, right? But I'm just going to say from my perspective, and I would never tell anybody else, each person is a relative truth, right? There's ultimate truth, which we are one, which we are immortal, energy cannot be destroyed, which we are connected with anything through quantum entanglement. And so for me personally, my only source, my only divine beloved, my only source of vitality, because I'm not this body, is beloved divine within. And anytime I try and make it all work out here, looking for anything to fulfill me or not have me a failed expectation, I'm literally always like, yeah, that's just not, it's really a dead end road for me.
So how do you balance the relationship between both? Like, how do you balance connecting into beautiful meditation and connecting with the divine within, and then choosing to go out there in a world filled with polarity? Like, how do you?
I think there's. You ever read the book, The One Thing by Gary Keller, which is about he created the number one real estate company in the world, which is kind of a funny metaphor, if you will. But he said how he had a success is by doing one thing that would take him in a quantum leap. But he also stated that he didn't believe in balance. And in fact, we know this, the brain doesn't have a balance. It can only focus on one thing at a time. So for me, I'm more of an extremist. I don't believe in the daily practice of like, I'm just going to balance it out here. I think sometimes you need months deep in meditation to fill that cup to be able to come back out into the world and work and not feel burnout. Sometimes you can do it here and there and have a morning and evening ritual, but I'm going to say and call the bluff on myself. I'm kidding myself when I think I can actually stay in the divine presence and not be a bit extreme around it.
So you, what I'm hearing is that you give yourself lots of compassion and don't expect yourself to show up in any kind of way in the world when you are not connected with the divine, because you think that's unrealistic as a human.
as a human, for sure. I mean, there's times when I'm like, I'm going to have some human time. I'm working on this project. I'm not fully like steeped in source. I'm going to have my human moments and like, yes, total compassion for it. And then there's times when I'm like, I need to kind of tap out of all relationships and fully immerse in with the beloved divine to fully like absolutely steep myself in truth. Otherwise, I can't do it. It's like there was this moment I remember some time back, and I was having great success in my company and in being quote quote a spiritual leader. And I remember like sitting there one night, and I was like, I hadn't been meditating very much, and I was kind of feeling like my nervous system was a little off. And I was like, and I had this moment. I was like, I feel less spiritual than I ever have in decades. And I'm having more success as the spiritual leader. And I was like, this is such a paradox, like seriously. And so the thing is, no one escapes it. No one's, a final destiny. No one's above it. We all leaders have to get their mind right and tap in and do their deep, deep practice. For some, that might look like they get heavy into sports and that's the way they get their mind right. For others, that may be breath work and connecting with conscious community. For me, it's silence, like dead silence, channeling divine all alone for weeks on end. That's like my tapping in, but everyone's different.
Beautiful. But you still value that as an experience. So you kind of see it as like, for you, it's like I'm charging up my connection to the divine, and that's subjective. And then I go out there into the world, and then I kind of discern when I feel I need to connect back into it.
Yeah, versus a lot of people will try and just get a bunch of distinctions and transformation, and they'll try and regulate. One of my annoying things is they'll try and regulate their nervous system all the time, and they try and have distinctions to process things all the time. And I'm like, oh man, that's a living hell in my opinion, because it just is constant, like trying to restabilize yourself instead of just fully getting truly stabilized in source until you are untouchable, as they say, And when you get in that space, there's no managing of that. There's no managing of that. But, it's like being a marathon, runner, or someone's calling. Hello, that's the universe calling.
Welcome to
hello,
the podcast.
I'm here. Yeah. So it's kind of like being an athlete. Like, I'm trying to think of the most famous basketball player that transitioned. Help
Michael Jordan?
No, the other one. Michael Jordan too. But they were obsessed. Okay, let's face the fact. They were obsessed with the game. They wanted to win, yes, but they loved the basketball. They loved the sport. It was their main focus in their life. Yes, they were able to have a relationship with it, but I promise you they spent more time with that basketball than they did with those relationships. And so it's kind of like that. So many people are into spirituality and they say it's dangerous from, a lot of people think it's dangerous because it can be, because when you know the truth and you've touched on divine and you've had those moments of eternality and the moments of pure consciousness, and then you think it's okay to just manage and try and balance your humanity, people tend to get sadder. They tend to be more frustrated because they know they're creating their reality, and yet they're not actually being able to, because they're not doing the deep, deep work that they need to, not just doing the trauma work and all the clearing of the subconscious and soul, but doing that practice.
Yeah. So I'd love to lay down my basic perspective of how I see the balance with that. And then I'd love for you to give your honest opinion on it. Yeah. So I see that there's like 3 ways that we can approach life that I perceive to be like a heart-centered approach to life. There are 3 flavors. I believe we can take action in the world and do something that feels meaningful. And that's a way to connect back to source, like a basketball player doing what they love, or like you presenting and speaking, creating, I call it creating. Or we can receive, and that's like giving to the world. We can receive and enjoy and connect and do things that kind of take a load off and experience in the world. That's kind of more feminine flavor. And then there are moments when neither of those are accessible, and there's some stuff going on that gets consciously like brought up as a divine intervention, in my perspective, from the universe, that kind of impedes on our capacity to do anything. And that's calling forth some kind of inner work that's needed. And with enough awareness, which just, in my opinion, builds through life as spiritual life, more awareness gets created, that in a moment where I'm feeling disorientated, I go, do I need to execute? Do I need to experience? Or do I need to explore what the fuck's going on that's blocking me from doing all of that? And then I'll do that. What's your perspective on
I
that?
love that. Okay. This is a very important distinction that I've really been diving into. Sorry, I have like some kind of thing in my throat. So I was like trying to drink water.
Throat chakra. The throat chakra's closing up.
Right.
We need that phone call back.
This is a very, very, very important conversation that I'm in with myself and with people who are in my life. Okay. And there are different levels of trauma that people have been through. In this lifetime, we know it's intergenerational. Sorry about that. I don't know how to turn this off.
I can't even hear anything. Good.
Okay, good. So there are different levels of trauma. Okay, we signed up for different master classes coming into this lifetime. Each and every one of us signed up for different levels of trauma, dysfunction, challenges. We signed up for this course. Like, I'll take that course. I'll take that course. Okay.
Yeah.
Some of us have been through so much trauma that it's almost as if many times I've tried to go, can I just be normal? If I do enough trauma work, then I can just have a regular life in a regular relationship and have, this kind of thing that the culture's told me that this means you're successful. Okay. But I believe that there's certain people that have gone down this track that have come to a place that what I would call almost like a point of no return. Meaning there's some people and they get to the point where they either want to take their life, where I would never take my life. There's been times when I haven't wanted to live, but I would never take my life. But there's a point of no return, meaning there's no turning back. Creation is creation. And when it goes dark enough, the only way is light from there. And the light is either going to go to, I'm transitioning to go back to the life, and they take their life. They basically take their life through drugs and alcohol and take their powers away. Yeah. Or they go to the light so much so that they transcend in this lifetime. Okay. So I don't necessarily believe in, I think that there's some people that their reptilian brain is not so messed up from so much trauma that they're able to manage, if you will, and have so much of a normal life. I don't know if this is making sense or not.
But for me, sense.
Okay. So for me, my traumas are so intense that there's no regulating my nervous system if I'm in certain situations. It's like the only way to regulate is to go so deep into source that I'm able to transcend it. I could not just through, whatever. So there's certain people, we have a divine appointment to go full transcending in this lifetime. I don't know if that from, you know what I mean? I don't know if that makes any sense.
I kind of see like the soul journey. This is just my perspective, which I think might be similar, is that we have two phases as a soul, and a soul being a fractal of oneness, but more connected to it than a human. So the soul is going through life, and someone's soul theme number one is contraction, and people get further and further to the point of separation. I call it the intolerable pain of separation, which you were saying, it gets so dark that there's no other way through. And when people hit that intolerable pain of separation, which some people won't do in this lifetime, they're just kind of coasting through life. They're not aware yet. They're not going into the remembering yet, but it's not painful enough to shift anything yet.
Yes.
And that's, but if they do hit that in this lifetime, their soul hits that point where it's the intolerable pain of separation. They then start going on the second phase, which is like the journey towards oneness. So I see it as just like, it's all moving in the same direction. It's all, that's kind of how.
We're saying the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Like some of the most amazing masters are the people that were addicts that came through the other side, the people that went to the hell and are able to heal from it. And they all become leaders pretty much. It's like in 12 step, you really, the only way you heal or stay healed is to serve, because there is this level of being in the light, but you have to serve to stay in the light. We're saying the same thing. It's completely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so the people that come to me are people who have generally gone dark. Like they have experienced a lot of trauma because obviously with me created the E4 trauma method and the E4 quantum, quantum healing and manifesting in that as well. And these people have a lot of trauma, and they keep trying to manage, without doing that deep spiritual work. And you just can't. If you've gone that far into trauma, and people, they have a lie around trauma that once you do your trauma work, that it's just going to be breezy. And that's not trauma work. Trauma work is actually for the revelation around it. Trauma is to go and realize where you created your own limited commands in the middle of a trauma incident. Trauma is not what happens to you. Trauma is what happens within you at a soul level. And traditional psychology doesn't measure what happens in the soul because they have no way of measuring it. But spiritual psychology and what we teach is understanding what actually happens at the soul level in trauma. And what happens is the decision for the division in mind. So all division from our divinity to divided happens in a moment of the perspective of being separate from people, places in life. And this is the scar of the soul. This is the tear in the soul. And the only way to merge that is to have revelation that you are the one that gave your own tear in your own soul. And in this revelation of this enlightenment, then we realize we're the creator. And we can exponentially create the division, and we can exponentially quantum manifest in our oneness. There is no difference between the creation of the light or the dark in this universe. It's a relative universe. So no matter what we're creating, we're powerful creators. And I want to say, anyone's listening in, if you're dealing with addiction, you're dealing with dysfunction, your relationship, you're dealing with not wanting to live, congratulations. It's a masterful creation. But know that same creation can equally create abundance and unity and launch you into a divine life.
Yeah, this is why I think you and DeMartini are a great fit.
Yeah, totally. We got to hang John DeMartini.
If you're listening to my podcast, John DeMartini, which I damn well expect, then that's the message.
Totally.
So someone is young, their dad slaps them in the, gives them some capital punishment and hits them, and they, in their mind, as a soul, in their mind, create this experience is more negative than positive. And then there's that additional charge that's attached to that memory.
There's actually what's called commands that happen. Okay, so let's pretend exactly what you said. There I am. My dad walks in the room. He said, I can't believe you did that. He slaps me in the face. And in that moment, I decided I'm not enough. Something's wrong with me. I'll never trust. Right? I don't want to be here. I don't want to live. Whatever. It's called the commands. And they actually go as engrams. And they actually have, they tag the epigenetics as a negative charge. So they downregulate the genes, if you will. They have a neurological thing called engram. It's an actual neurological memory that happens. So it's basically, as they say, the truth will set you free. A command in the middle of trauma is a lie. It's a divided perspective. It's a limited belief. It's a false identity. And it literally is what cast Adam and Eve out of the Garden of Eden. It's judgment. It's division. And in that is what tags the DNA. And that's actually what has us have a less of a perspective and actually makes us not able to see things through. It makes us not be able to have relationships. It makes our health worsen, right? All these things that happen, we know all this factually from trauma. Trauma impacts us exponentially, but trauma is not what happens to you because it's relative. For one person, yes, they're in a car accident or in the war. But for majority, people have been, bullied on the jungle gym or had a massive breakup. Or their parents yelled in front of them and were yelling and fighting, right? For me, it was my parents were when I was in vitro, my parents were in terrible. They almost aborted me, right? I had total colic growing up. I was dyslexic. These are all actually the cause and effect of trauma.
Yes.
So guess what happens once you do your trauma work? I was in a 60-mile-per-hour rollover in a truck and trailer. I hurt my back. I couldn't walk for 2 weeks at a time. I had all those traumas, and all through the work, everything healed. My back healed, my dyslexia went away, my ability to see things, projects through. Everything begins to shift when we do our deep healing. But the questions for people is, how far do you want to go? You can go as far as you want, or you can just get a little bit more functional. The choice is only yours. Yes. And that's the trouble with this, as you know. It's like, I know I'm the creator of my entire universe, and the same source that created me created the entire universe. Oh shit. And I am the creator of my universe. And oh my God, I can't even create something today. What's wrong with me? You know, it's that whole paradox all the time.
So when you say you can go as far as you want, when we were talking before about that turning point from intense darkness to holy crap, there's no other way but to go towards the light. I personally see the journey from that moment to that soul's evolution for the rest of their life and future lifetimes as finding more division and turning it into divinity, if I put it in your language, just at random divine points. It's like the universe drip feeds opportunities to see division and giving us the opportunity to find divinity in that division. So we become more and more connected to divinity as a soul over time, aka like.
Okay. So friend to friend, heart to heart. This is the real conversation. This is something for you and me, okay? For somebody who's like, so people that are just beginning their journey and they're like, oh, I'm manifesting. Oh my God. You know, and you're like, oh my gosh, really? Like, and there's people like you that are like really and truly deeply desiring to know thyself. Okay.
Well, I was that person, just to be clear.
I was too, just so you know.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm better than you because I know some transformational distinctions. And oh my gosh, like you have no idea. Like, yeah, complete spiritual elitism and egoism. Been there, all of us. Okay. But when you get to the heart of the matter and you're like, holy cow, this is not just about manifesting some stuff. This is about really, truly knowing myself. And I'll tell you the meanest thing that anyone ever said to me in my life. It wasn't some ex telling me that I was whatever. I was in Bali and I was with this family. I was traveling and I thought, oh, maybe I'll meet some guru or something. But what actually happened, I ended up becoming a teacher over there. There was this family that was having a son that his son was going through kind of a spiritual awakening. And the mother and father came to me and they were having this conversation about it. And we started talking and said, you're saying the exact same things that the shamans are saying. And we're so confused. And we began to talk about spiritual awakening. And they began to invite me over to help me with their family daily going through this transition. Their son was having a spiritual awakening and he was having a psychic break. Okay. But he was really having a true spiritual awakening. He was having profound insights. And he looked at me and he said, you will never know God, like fully know God. And when he said that, there was a part of me that knew he was correct. In that, I've chosen and you've chosen to be over here in the Western world. We've chosen to dance with the divine and touch on that, but come and be in this human world.
Yes.
And it's a servant. You know, we're here to serve. It's much easier and more blissful to go and just be with God, to go into the cave and not do this work out here. This is hard work out here to find that balance. And so when he said that, what it represented to me is that I'll never fully, because in the full embodiment of the God self, right? Full enlightenment, where you see the rainbows going over the temples of the enlightened ones over, and and we've chosen to not take that path.
Yeah.
And it's a hard path, being over here, doing this work, touching on the divine, trying to manage it and doing this work. And it's something, I would say that's the meanest thing and the most true thing at some level that someone has ever said to me.
Thanks for sharing that. And I'm geeking out in this conversation, loving it. And I'm going to keep the intense questions rolling because so if we come into this human form, it's the purpose of creation to be human beings, to have all this external material create. We've gone from the unmanifest world of pure light, which we will never be in because we're human beings, but we're coming into this world. And the more that we go through life and we're creating, we start to create more. Like the only constant is evolution and change. Do you agree with that? Like that's the purpose of life
Yeah,
is
other than I want
pushing
to clarify one thing
yeah.
about what I just said and what you're saying. We are God's source.
Yes.
We are already there. We'll never not be there. It's
Yeah.
just our experience of it. We've
Okay.
chosen to put on the veil at some level to experience and be in the senses of this world. Okay. So when I say experience that God source, it means fully going beyond the senses and really being in that space. Right. So it's not like
Yes.
you're not worthy or I'm not worthy. We're already that. It's just that
Yes.
to fully experience that in this lifetime, we really have to be fully steeped in just the presence without having senses, if you will. Mm-hmm.
Yes, totally. And so we're in the unmanifest as an experience. We get pulled into the manifest where ignorance comes in, and that creative force forces us to be able to see things through a subjective bias. And we're a human being now. And then as a human being that is also God, we're creating things because we have the purpose of life as growth and evolution. But the more that things grow and evolve, the more complex they become, like us as a human species with technology and all these different modern creations. Even like your E4 trauma method is like more advanced than some things before it. So it's become more evolved. It's divine, but it's also more complex because it's more nuanced. And everything that's evolving is becoming more complex and nuanced, which in my opinion, on some level is more separate. So if we are connected to love and divinity, but we're creating and manifesting, and we're creating a big life, we're manifesting our dreams. Where's love fit into this? If we're becoming more complex, because you can create from fear, and it's also complex, and I think it's kind of like imbued with more fear consciousness, and will lead people more to that darkness, which brings them back to light. But then if we're creating from love, potentially our complex creations are bringing people back to light. What do you see as like evolution becoming more separate, but only also being love?
So coming into this lifetime, I was able to really take a look, going through regressions and going through all lifetimes. It's the coolest thing ever, going through past lifetimes. And you realize that we've been all of it. We've been the perpetrator, we've been the victim, we've been the woman, we've been the man, we've been the child. We're all of it, right? This is the truth of who we are, right? So the creative factor goes like this. Universal law, it's like consciousness comes down. It's the conscious part, and it goes through. So when I decide something, right, it goes through the filter. It's like a filter. It's like, imagine the sun's coming through a filter.
Okay.
And in the filter is what's considered the subconscious mind, which is called the subjective mind, which is the same as universal law. And it polarizes through there. A good example of this is Thomas Troward said, it's the self-contemplation of the self that creates. If I am the one source, pure consciousness creating, and the minute that I have in consideration that I'm just this body or this person called Erin, or that I have any considerations or any identity other than the I am,
like I like
that
pink.
actually sets the exactly. That sets the polarity. That actually sets the polarity into motion of this thing called creation of all of life. Okay.
Sure.
So you have to know that we're in a relative universe. It's not like there's going to one day be just light or one day be dark. There's equal and opposite through the quantum entanglement, right?
Yes.
There's equal and opposite, right? So even though you and I are experiencing having this relative experience of being human, there's equal opposite. We're always experiencing more and more of the miracles, and we may perceive it or not perceive it, but the reality is that we are all of it, and we are the extent to which we have more dark, there's equal and opposite as much light. So again, it's not like we need to do anything. We just have chosen this particular masterclass in this lifetime and gone, here's the genes I'm going to be going into. Here's the division that I'm being born into. In fact, I'm going to choose my parents. I'm going to choose my name. I'm going to choose my location that I'm born into. And in this, I have a karmic patterning of energetics.
Yes.
Okay. So in this, yes, I'm going to most likely stay in this level of a box of staying in the Western world. Maybe I'm going to stop the patterns a bit because I'm going to do some trauma work. I'm going to lighten up, whatever. But I'm probably very rarely would be the person that's going to be jaunting off to the cave to do meditation for the rest of my life. Right. So it's like, it just is a karmic, it's the perfect evolution of wherever we've chosen to come into this lifetime.
Cool. So to know God then is to accept the polarity, the light and the dark. So if we're like, hey, Dr. Erin and Ryan Magic are collaborating on helping the universe and supporting people to connect more to the divine, more to their heart, to manifestation. But then equally, the more that we do that, we're also actually, just through universal law and polarity, creating more darkness somewhere else.
1,000%.
So essentially, we're just here to enjoy our experience and like enjoy the contrast and the separation.
This is screw this podcast is go, have a cocktail. I'm just kidding. I mean, it really is empty. It really is empty and meaningless, as they say, right? I mean, honestly, the reason why I do this, and I'm sure, and I'd love to know really the motivation for you, is that I'm just obsessed with consciousness. I love the conversation of consciousness. I love to see how science is backing it and how philosophy and psychology and unified physics. And I love to watch people when they go through the transformation of that big transformation breakthrough. And I watch their energetics. I watch their entire presence change. I watch their relationships and their health and their wealth shift. And it's more like I just love it. It's like creating.
Yeah.
I can just go to Mother Nature. I love that too. But and I can find the consciousness and evolution in there too. No matter what, it's my filter, right? It's like the filter I'm looking through life in all the time. I love the expanding of consciousness and seeing how that tree was created and seeing how what makes people motivated to create the next thing. I love creation and manifestation. It's my favorite conversation.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yeah. This is funny that this is where the conversation went to. I love the real talk though. I kind of see like those three flavors that I said, like in any moment to return back to the divine. And just my subjective choice of how to view the world is you can create, celebrate, or elevate. So you can just like create, do some shit and enjoy that, or you can like externally, or you can just experience, like celebrate, connect, have fun, do the things that we do to take a load off, or you can elevate, which is kind of like the opportunity to transcend through working on our traumas and journaling, breathwork, whatever the thing that someone feels aligned to do is, or meditating in a cave or whatever.
Well, I would say most people aren't able to do any of those because they're suffering so much from managing their emotions. They're upset from yesterday, 10 years ago, the childhood and past lives, so they're not really even able to create because all they're creating is a resistance of what's happened. And so they're just creating the resistance to what is. So they're creating just more resistance. So that's why they call it fear thy Lord. And universal law, it's the law. So fear thy law. So if you put the emotions of fear into it, you're going to create more fear. If you create more, sadness, you're going to create more sadness. If you create more judging of people, you're going to create more division. So most people aren't able to even see how they're creating. They don't understand that they're the creators of their emotions. The moment they assign a positive or negative meaning onto anything, it creates a thought, a feeling, an emotion, and a circumstance. But they've never been educated enough to even know that grief is the consideration that what they value is gone, that anger is the consideration that something's in the way of what they're creating, that apathy is the consideration that nothing is valuable. We're not educated to understand that we are creators and we have created the entire universe. There's only one source, it's divine source, and it filters as the fractal of each individual. And so if you want to have more power in your life, you have to take responsibility for all creation that's ever happened, which means you created your ex into your life at some level, and people don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear how they created their own traumas. They don't want to hear how they created all of it. But that's the hard work. And that's the real warrior work that we're here to do, to know that, we don't really get to celebrate until you can't go up until you've gone fully down. Like you got to fully go into the deep, deep, deep clearing of the soul, which is the hardest work you will ever do. And I know you know this for sure.
Yeah. This is why I perceive it to be like an ongoing project, because like you said, people come in with different levels of trauma. Some people are mega traumatized and they're just like super reactive and drug abusive and they go into the shadow. Sometimes people have a little bit of trauma and it's causing some dysfunction. They struggle to communicate in their relationship. But I perceive viewing the present moment and where we are as perfect, however subjectively filled with trauma we are, is the only way to really fully learn to appreciate the stage you're at and just move forward with the next aligned thing from that point.
And there's different things. I would say it's like there's a journey. There's a very specific path of healing and awakening and manifesting, quantum manifesting. And I always say the first is for sure just to become conscious of how it's all been created. But we have to reprogram. We have to reprogram the subconscious mind through the trauma work, through releasing the limited beliefs and the false identities and clearing out the energetics and untagging the DNA and reprogramming our entire system and rewiring the brain and rewiring the neurological system. Now that's a task, and it takes training, and it takes the ability to understand how to get the energy high through breath work, through processes of visioning, through processes, whatever. And that's where E4 comes in, because E4 is a 4-step process for trauma. It's a 4-step process to emotional mastery. And it's a 4-step process to actually rewire the brain and rewire the entire neurological system. So really and truly, you've got to do all levels. It's like being in a relationship. There's 3 parts to the brain. You've got the reptilian brain, the limbic brain, and the cerebral cortex. And people think, oh, I'm going to logically think through this relationship issue. That ain't never going to happen until you deal with that reptilian brain and the actual fight or flight, and until you deal with how to handle emotions, and until you also have, your principles and how you manage the relationship. People are delusional, thinking that they're just going to, solve it with a therapy session. It's like, you got to do deep eye gazing. You've got to do deep, deep work to connect into one soul and really bond at a body, mind, spirit level. So this is I'm obsessed with this work because what I'm going to pattern out what I saw in my parents. I'm going to pattern out what I see in the culture. 15% of marriages are happy half the time. It's not working out, you guys, just so you know. So what's the next evolution? You know what I mean? Yeah. I want the next evolution. And the only way it's going to happen is the coherence within me. So we know this now with energy, that they have through unified physics. I was able to hang out with the number 1 top unified physics in the world, physician, Nassim Haramein. And he taught me incredible wisdom about coherence and how they actually have infinite energy, that you don't need source anymore, an outside source. And it's the coherence. And it's actually through the quantum entanglement that 2 particles will start to swirl around each other, because they're just like the quantum entanglement. They do the opposites. So you can get them to actually move exponentially for eternity, creating energy. And this is what's called coherence. And this is actually what is considered the secret of the energetics of the entire universe. They're just happening. This is what they think UFO energy is made out of and everything. So as an individual, if I want to quantum manifest, I actually have to find that coherence within every single cell of my body. That's where sex magic comes in. Ooh. That's where high breath work comes in. That's where all this incredible advanced work comes in, to not just reprogram and settle out my nervous system, but to take a effing quantum leap in who I am as an individual fractal of the one. So this is what I believe Buddha and Christ and all the prophets they refer to, is they figured out how to get their system in such coherence and such profound oneness with every single mitochondria is, in intelligence and communicating with the entire universe. Yes, having cosmic orgasms, there's a purpose to it. It's not just about feeling good. It's about actually communicating with every universe and being able to get in that presence so that you can walk in a room or talk to anybody and their entire world shifts instantaneously. That's the only work we should be doing. Half the stuff we're doing is kind of BS out there, getting this work out there. The real work is really inside of every cell of our body, because every single cell has a black hole and a star in it. This is what Nassim is teaching. Okay. Yes. It's an entire universe, every single cell.
Yes.
Right. So this is what's exciting. This is what gets me completely pumped up.
So what are you doing to make your mitochondria dance in unity?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
I believe detoxing is imperative.
Yes.
To be able to clear out, because the body can do natural things, right? Of course, all your trauma work for sure. Yes. And this is not just me saying this, people who are having breakthroughs in age and reverse aging are doing the same things. They're common. So I'm having advanced. Yeah. Yes. But I'm having advanced scientists that are the experts of anti-aging reaching out to me, because they realize that they can cleanse their client, but they have to do trauma work. So trauma work cleansing the body and dealing with the mitochondria and the what's it called, telomeres, is the work for telomeres. So those are like the core three things. Oh, and the fourth is the biosystem of your intestines. Okay. So those are the four foundations of anti-aging. Okay. So the same thing, if you want to spiritually awaken, we now can reverse aging. We literally can reverse aging. Okay. That's our divine birthright. We have actually been set that through shamans in South America as well, that we've gone into the evolution where we actually can reverse aging. So everything going in science with, is spiritually, it's all one happening. So our destiny is eternal life in the physical form, because we are eternal. There's no such thing as death. There's only eternal. So these are the destinies. So it's like, people are like, well, why are you not like in a relationship? And I'd be in a relationship if it's the right relationship, but this is my obsession. Like, this is what I do. So like, I'm not, if they're in this mission, they're doing it fine. If they're not, fine. It's like, I'm not, it's like people just have their obsession. They love whatever they love. So do whatever it is that you love. That's the highest form of our expression.
Yes. So was there a point where you were disconnected from what you loved, and like, because you do what you love? I feel like this is a DeMartini thing. I'm going to bring it into the conversation. By the way, you're on fire in this chat. You just like spitting flames of wisdom and knowledge bombs, and this is awesome. So DeMartini says you will go against, like, if you pedestal people because you don't understand your own worth, you'll inject their values and you'll be inauthentic trying to be someone that you're not. Therefore, it can be very difficult to find what actually lights you up. So was there a point where your lifestyle was motivated by what people told you that you should do or what you thought you should be that blocked you from finding your purpose?
Oh, I think social media is the biggest distraction that has that programming that all of us fall into the trap of, like, oh, I should be like that, or I should do that, or I should post like this, or it's like constantly in your face. And it's the biggest distraction for us, if we don't have that feedback of how many likes and how many whatever, right? It's like, what would I really be doing if the culture didn't tell me I need to be doing X, Y, and Z as a woman, So yeah, I mean, it's been such a place to go. It's like the energy project, what gives people the highest energy? And it really is aligning to your authentic, what you love is the number one thing. So for me, I don't like to just go hang out with people. I mean, I'll do it if it's conscious people, but it's not my greatest love. My greatest love is tapping into a source and then downloading, content and then putting it into either processes for people to be able to awaken even more, or putting it into the next book, or putting it into the next teaching. That's my greatest love. My greatest love is bringing truth to the planet.
Beautiful. Yeah. So what would you say for people out there? Actually, this is what we're going to do, and then we're going to bring it home and wrap this up, because even though it's been awesome. You mentioned there's 4 things that you need to do to get into more into coherence on this planet, which will therefore reduce aging. Which of those?
Those are not, just so you know, those are 2 different conversations. Anti-aging, as far as like just getting to health, is different than cohesion. Cohesion would be like next level. Okay. So a traditional doctor that's saying reverse aging, they would say it's those 4 things I said, right? Which is detox, trauma, and all that. But cohesion is like, that's like a quantum manifesting type of a thing, where it's heavy breath work, connecting with source, fully doing that at a quantum level. Yes. The miracle of the body, right? Okay. It's a little bit, it's the same, but it's like next level. Yeah.
Yeah. So detoxing, which is the anti-aging, is a factor for that coherence. Yes, is that correct?
It's a fact. It's like like all that stuff is foundation, and then going to coherence, which is massive up leveling, massive, like the gurus in India that are doing the massive breath work and very advanced mantras and things.
Yeah. Okay. So of all those contributing factors towards coherence, which is what lights you, like one of the things that lights you up massively, what do you do in your own lifestyle at the moment to move more towards coherence?
Okay.
Like you
Number
in your
one,
life?
say I'm stressed out. We wake up sometimes just like, okay. Number one is I will put on 11 minutes of what's called heart rate variability. So you can find it on YouTube. You can download an app called Breathing, and it literally will just be like 10 seconds in, 10 seconds out. It's basically doing diaphragm breaths. So what happens is something happens in this when you keep doing it. You can do it for 5 minutes, you can do it for 20 minutes, whatever. And you breathe in and out in perfect rhythm, and it will reset the heart rate variability. You can actually track it on a little machine, and it means people are not stressed. Okay. So stress, we know, is the number one ager and killer, right? So if you want to anti-age, or if you want to get in coherence, the first thing is taking away the stress, which means you can do heart rate variability breathing, which means diaphragm breathing. Okay. You can do that for the whole day and you're going to feel freaking amazing. Okay. You will have probably out of body experiences if you just did that alone. Okay. One of the things that I love to do is breath work, heavy breath work, like breath of fire, where you basically, you can put your arms up. I'm sure you know this, but someone who doesn't know it. And you basically do diaphragm, you breathe in and out of the nose very fast, and you're actually pumping your diaphragm. And it's focusing on the exhale of the breath, but actually it's equal in and out. You can Google it also, breath of fire as well. Okay. That's another way. And what that does is it brings in all the prana of the breath, which is the source of life, and it will reset every single cell in your body. So if I personally need a reset, say I wake up and like, if I just do 11 minutes of heart rate variability, I do a 3-minute of breath work, a breath of fire, and then I'll go into, say, a 5-minute silent meditation. And then after that, I vision. I'm going to vision my highest day, my highest use of my energy. I'm completely reset, and I can powerfully go into knowing what's my next most important thing that I'm doing and take a quantum leap in my personal professional life that day.
So amazing, so powerful. There's a lot of breath in there.
I know what it's like to not have it, man. It's like living hell.
Yeah. Okay. I've got 2 more questions. One is, when you are not in the obsession, which I know will take up most of your time, of like being connected to divinity as much as possible, and then sharing that wisdom with others. When you're not doing either of those things, what excites you most at the moment to do?
I have some dear friends that we like to just be totally goofy, like just fart jokes and whatever, right? Like just like being just like when I get into the 6-year-old state with my girlfriends, where we're like, I have a girlfriend, bless her heart, her mother's transitioning right now as we speak. And she is such a woman of source. She is the most pure, most loving. But when we'll go on a walk or something, she has these different characters that she starts, acting out, and they're hilarious characters, we'll just be on the floor rolling, just being silly, being totally silly and goofy. I think that for me, which might be like for you, is that I have to somewhat put people, not in a bad way, but in a healthy way, in kind of categories. So if somebody is in my life and they are complaining, or they are talking bad about their ex, or they're talking about the politics, and as if they're the effect of it, then they go in the category of a client, or somebody that I'm gonna invite them to come to something, or gift them something because I truly care about them. But I wouldn't consider them a possibility being in my inner circle at their consciousness. There's other people that are in my level of consciousness, like you, for example. We can jam. You get it right. I know anytime you're going through something that's hard, we're going to talk about it from a perspective of truth, and you're going to really get, you're going to be more interested in how you're creating it, and how to take responsibility around it. And friends of friends will be there to bring us back to truth. And then there's another category, and there's the category of when I can actually really learn from this human being. And I would consider them mentors. Okay. If they would like to be my friend, great. But I wouldn't like be delusional and think that they should have me necessarily in the inner circle, unless they really did. And some of my biggest mentors have become my best friends because they do consider me to have high level consciousness. But I have to put them in those categories, you know what I mean? Because as somebody who's advancing, I'm not going to put myself constantly having to hold space for somebody. Because I do that all the time. And I deserve to be around consciousness that's right, that's raising me up and expanding me with grace instead of having to always hold consciousness. So I think it's important to know who your people are, and same with relationship. You may date somebody and really have a lot of affinity for them, but they may not have the same vision as you. They may not have the same goals as you, and they may not have exactly the same value systems as you. So you have to say, I love this person and I can try and make a whole life with them, but it wouldn't be my life, the one that I choose for myself. And it's okay to consciously say that we're uncoupling and that's okay. And it's for the highest good, because everyone should be celebrated exactly as they are. And everyone gets to create exactly what they want in this lifetime.
That's so beautiful. All right. I lied before. I've got 2 more questions. So one is your dream in this lifetime, before you pass over. What's a dream that you would like to see actualized in the world that's most meaningful to your heart?
I love that question so much. I mean, from a business perspective, I really desire and have the dream of having people really have systems to absolutely reprogram their subconscious mind, for them to really be able to release the traumas and untag their DNA so they can fully experience being able to create for themselves. That's my greatest wish for anybody, for them to have freedom of choice. For sure, no question about it. So a dream around that, of course, would be, I mean, I guess you could see that, and I have a vision of being in Carnegie Hall and getting a Nobel Peace Prize. So that's one of my dreams.
Wow, that's so cool.
And yeah, it just comes through all the time for sure. And then I think personally, let me think about a dream. I mean, my granddaughter, who's not yet in this realm, comes to me all the time. So I would just say that I am really looking forward to whether she comes in that form or not, or whatever that is, that's definitely, she comes as such an unconditional loving. Like our children, I have a child, I have obviously have a son, and they teach you unconditional love, totally unconditional love. But my granddaughter already teaches me like the most abundance of love. Like she teaches me love like no one has ever taught me love before.
Wow. You connect with her when you drop into those states of divinity. Wow.
I can connect with her anytime.
That's so
that's the cool thing about this work. I can talk to people on the other side. I can talk to prophets. I can, talk to somebody that's on the other side of the world. All I have to do is just go on their consciousness and know exactly what's going on.
So amazing. Wow. That's so cool. All right. So I'm going to hold my last question, but I'm going to give you the chance to invite people to what you would like them to do in terms of work with you. Like, I know you've got so many different amazing offers out there in the world. You've got the spiritual psychology school.
Yeah. So the ways you can work with me, one is you can just go binge my podcast as well, which is the Dr. Erin Show. And I do almost all solo podcasts because I had a show, Good Morning, LaLa, and I interviewed 1,600 people on the show. So my podcast is generally also the podcast teaching my teachings, right? So you can go binge all that. I do have a Universal Law Oracle deck card. That's amazing if you want to really understand universal law stuff. I have a book, Awakening, which is a really great guide, truly and truly, to understand all the distinctions of what's really going on and how to begin that process, and advanced stuff in there as well, for sure. You can also, I have a certification program. So the certification is an E4 of quantum healing and manifesting, being able to do all 3 levels. And then we're just doing courses. So we've actually been revamping everything. We don't offer the same level. It's all spiritual psychology school, but we're just doing level 1. And then you've got to rise up from there. We used to offer 5 different levels and have people go through the whole thing. But they need to start with the basics. Really start with the basics, which is a profound, to learn universal law, learn quantum healing, and learn quantum manifesting. So that's the way you can work with me. You can go to drerin.tv, which is DRERIN.tv. And it really basic to show you the three next steps to take, or grab my books, whatever. It's all there.
Yeah,
podcasts,
amazing.
right there.
You're the first guest that I've had on this show twice. And the last episode was episode 21. This is episode 71. So it's exactly 50 episodes ago. And you spoke a lot about the E4 trauma method in that episode, which is why I didn't touch on it as much in this. But for anyone that's interested in the E4 trauma method, you can go and listen to that, where Erin goes through
Mm-hmm.
it pretty in depth as well. So
I'm also launching big events, like 2-day events, where we'll do the big quantum healing and manifesting, like a compounded thing through it. It's going to be amazing. So cool. But yeah, E4's evolved because we did so much work, all this spiritual psychology work. And we had literally, we're producing enlightened people. It was like, it's crazy. Like I'd have girls that came in that were sexually abused by their fathers, to where they were completely enlightened, like walking through life, just absolutely understanding creation and fully, like, I mean, it was like just incredible to witness what we were
wow.
producing. And so I was like, well, I don't want to just be about the trauma, because it's so much more, So
Yeah.
E4 has evolved, and now it is a level of doing that deep quantum healing with the trauma, but it's
Oh,
also about doing the quantum manifesting, so that you can really turn on your superpowers and be able to communicate anywhere all the time, and into your true nature, which is enlightened. It's your true nature. Yeah.
wow. Amazing. My
Mhm.
final question is, if I was to bring someone to you, you don't know if they're male or female or their age or anything about them, and they give you $1 million because they love you so much, they listen to this podcast and they're like, I just want to give this lady something in exchange for what she would determine to be the number one best piece of advice that she could ever give. And they give you the $1 million. What piece of advice do you give them in exchange for that?
Mhm. I mean, I think I've already talked on here for sure. I mean, for me personally, having somebody do their trauma work is the greatest gift they can give themselves, because
Mm,
trauma work, what I don't think people quite understand about trauma work, is that trauma work is a path to enlightenment. That
mm,
there's a moment in trauma work when people are doing in the middle of an E4, when they realize the negative commands that they created and how they've been playing out in their life and in lifetimes. And
mm,
so for me, to give the gift to the self, to do your own trauma work, it's not easy. It's, no one wants to go back and deal with things that are that dark. But when you do, it's literally liberating yourself. So of course, the greatest gift anyone could have and give to themselves, and what I want to give to anybody, is freedom, liberation of the soul.
mm. Beautiful, Erin. Thank you. I love you. I appreciate you coming
I
on
love you
today.
too. I love
And
you so
thank you.
much.
And thank you, listeners, for tuning in this whole episode. Go check out Erin's stuff right now. Go check it out. Binge watch her podcast. Get her book. Get her Oracle card deck. And check her out. Thank you, guys. Peace out.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Ryan Magic.